Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I have a project here using an Easter actually, stamp set, but we're going to use it in a little different way so we can use it all year round. Here are some supplies I'm using. I'm using the Vase 7. You know that Papertrey Ink comes out with a vase every month. And then this is for Easter Extravagance, and it has these wonderful Easter eggs, so there's still time. You can grab your copy of this. The complete supply list is below, and you can use it for Easter, and then you can use it all year round because it has these fabulous flowers, and you can do all sorts of things with them. But you'll see how I use them today. And I have some hot press watercolor paper and a piece of alpaca, which is a gray, but it is a little bit of have a little bit of a pinkish tone. Then I have some brushes, some clear water. I mounted up just the detail stamp of the vase. And I'm starting out with cocoa bean and a little bit of the dark chocolate down at the edges. I am purposely, you can see I'm wiping that off right at the top in the center. I'm spritzing it after I ink it to get that moving just a little bit because we are using watercolor paper, and it really accepts it very nicely. Now I'm just using some clean water, and I'm just urging that ink away from where I stamped it. And I'm putting a little bit of dark chocolate on my glass mat. I'm using that as my palette. And I'm just going to add some color, drawing it in towards the center. I'm going to leave a lot of white space as well. And as you can see, I'm going to leave the top, very top quite pale, especially in the center. And I'm just urging this ink out. This is the procedure we're going to use all along with all of our elements, where we ink first, spritz, and then stamp, and then urge out with our paintbrush. And then when we want to crisp it up, after we think we've got all the shading and everything that we want in there, we're going to just lightly ink it again, and then stamp it just to crisp up those words and to crisp up the sides, but not the top. I'm going to let that be where it is. And sometimes I have this at a kind of a weird angle. It's just I'm trying to avoid those reflections, but you see I just can't sometimes. Now I've picked out a cluster of flowers, and I have several, like 4 or 5 individual ones that I've picked out. There's oodles to choose from, so you can pick which ones you like. I started out inking it with pink raspberry, then I spritzed it and stamped it, doing the damp brush again. And I'm just going to give it that little bit of, I'm going to leave a little bit of white space too, but then color it in. And since you lose a tiny bit of the detail when you add your water, we're always going to go back and stamp it again just lightly to get the detail back. Here are the colors that I'm using. I'm using Warm Lipstick, a distressing, Pink Raspberry is a distressing, and then for Papertrey Ink, the Pale Peony and the Berry Sorbet. The Pale Peony is the lightest, and the Picked Raspberry is the darkest. And I have just a little bit of that Picked Raspberry on my glass mat, just to use that for a shading color. I've moved this cluster of flowers now, and I'm stamping it with some Warm Lipstick, tiny bit of the Berry Sorbet. I'm just going to use these 4 colors of the pinks. And like I said, you could use any color scheme that you like. I wanted this kind of vintagey pink color that goes so nicely with the brown. You know, that vase would look great in some grays or even some colors. I mean, it would look great in anything. I'm also putting down some Pale Peony onto my glass mats, for using it again as my palette, so that I can just put touches of ink. And that's all you're doing, is just a touch of ink. This goes very fast. You can see I've got this at regular speed, and And we're just filling up this arrangement pretty quickly. Now I think I'm going to switch for now to a single flower. This is a large one. I'm starting out with pale peony, but pale peony is quite pale, so I'll add a little bit of berry sorbet. I spritz it to get that ink moving a little bit. Then my brush. And doing the same thing, if I need to pick up a little color, I do off to the side where I have those little inks kind of smushed there. And I use a little bit of berry sorbet to define this flower. And then we'll go on to add some more flowers. And as I fill this up, I'm also thinking where I want my foliage, because I am going to add, remember, there's some leaves and some spriggy things that go along with this stamp set. So it's quite complete. And I'm going to just fill that in with just part of this cluster. I do use a baby wipe to wipe off areas that I don't want to use. Again, I'm sorry for the reflection. And I just go back and forth, just stamping a little bit and then using the my brush to urge out the ink. And then if I need to, I put a little berry sorbet on my glass mat. There's my palette too, just so I have all the colors there that I can use. And now I'm just using some smaller flowers, adding them in here and there, kind of extending the bouquet out a little bit. And now I think I'm going to switch to the foliage, so you can see these pieces that we have in those little spriggy things. And I'm using the inks I'm using are New Leaf and Ripe Avocado. They're both Papertrey Ink inks. And I'm going to start out using my stamp positioner. Then I will move to just stamping them on an acrylic, using an acrylic block. But I'm going to just stamp these few. Now, I am not stamping the whole thing, just the ends of it, because I don't want, and I'm wiping off where it gets to where the stems are. I just want to add in a little bit of this foliage without interfering with my flowers. And I'm going to tuck in another little flower because I think it needs it right there. We'll use some berry sorbet and use the same thing and tuck in our a little flower. And I'll do that periodically here and there. And I'm deliberately keeping this kind of with medium tones because I am trying to get to that vintagey look. Now I've just gone to my acrylic block, and again, keep in mind I'm only inking the top portion. I'm really looking where I'm stamping this, and I'm wiping it off the bottom part with, if I get any ink on it, with my baby wipe, so that I can make sure that I don't have those stems going over the top of my flowers. If a little bit of green gets over the top and there are a few leaves, that works out great because that's what would happen in nature. But if it gets to where you get some green where you don't want to quickly go over it with the pink where your flower is, and you can usually disguise it. So I'm just going through and I'm just adding these different little sprigs in there, and you can see I'm wiping off everything except for the very, very tops that have the leaves. And you can see that this bouquet is really coming to life. Now I added a little flower just to extend it out again. Another little flower. Add in some color. And now I think I finished with all my flowers and my foliage. I've taken some of my dark chocolate, that cocoa bean, and now some weather vane. And I'm just very, very lightly adding in a little bit of a base or a grounding for my vase there. And I'm going to put most of the color more on the left side for the shading. but some on the right. And I'm just being very, very careful with this. Very little um, water. You can see if I don't like it, I just blot it off really quickly. I have a paper towel and a baby wipe always right with me, so I know if I'm wiping off the stamp, I use the baby wipe and the paper towel to just blot up anything that I didn't want. Now, I think I've got that pretty well done, and I am using some Dr. P.H. Martin bleed proof white. You know that I love this ink. It is very opaque. It's very white. And I'm using a pen holder with a nib. I have all the supplies you can that are listed down below. You could use a paintbrush, but I like the control I have with the nib. I can get them really nice and round. And I'm just adding in baby's breath, just a little bit of these small little white flowers here and there, and I'm just going to fill it out in this bouquet. It is very, very subtle. I don't know how much you're seeing on camera, but in real life, you can really see it. It is subtle. You don't want it screaming at you, but it's definitely there, and it is softening and bringing out the whole display. So you can see it's all done. Now when it dries, I'm going to use either this is a pierced die, but you can use a stitched or none at all, whatever you'd like. And I trimmed it out. I have a white card base. I put my alpaca panel on top, and now you can see I have this little container that whenever I make a sentiment and I don't use it, I put it in that little container. I fished through there and found the perfect one, a loving hello. This is from Effortless Beauty, a Papertrey Ink stamp and die set, which is really wonderful. So that's a wonderful one to have. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on the back. And really, this card is done because I want it very simple. And you know, it would be great. This would be great for just a note card, or doing a series of note cards would be fabulous. You could do it in different colors. I really like all the different ways that you can use this card. Now here is a close-up so you can really get a good look at it. And I just love how it turned out, and I think it's a lot of fun. You see here when I photographed it, I took the sentiment off. Somehow I just really loved it without the sentiment, but you can use it for anything. And I think, like I said, this is a great gift as a set. It's great to just send to somebody that just loves a little bit of floral surprise there. I want to thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. We would love that. And then here are just a few supplies I use, which are Easter Extravagance stamp, the Vase Collection 7, and then the various ink colors, plus the papers and all of those things. You can click the link down below and you can it'll take you right to that supply list, and plus some close-ups, so be sure to check that out too. I want to thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you next time. Bye.